What's up, guys? It's your boy Meat Man, and today we have another great guest. We have CR-Volcanic. Now, who is CR-Volcanic?
Oh man, dude, who isn't CR-Volcanic, am I right? Do Monster Hunter videos, mostly long form Monster Hunter videos. Yeah, 14th person to go to the moon. And I do live streams and I say silly stuff on live streams. That would be hilarious if we go on Indeed and we're like, we need an execution.
Yeah, we get called into some FBI office and they're like, fellas, you can't be serious. Like, you guys, you cannot go out and publicly look for an executioner pretending to be Popeye. That's copyright law. And
I put that on another channel. We just do, it's weird. It's such a dichotomy of stuff where I do these long form, well thought out, arduous think piece projects about Monster Hunter and game design, and then I say the most stupid goblinoid crap on live streams and put that out in stream clips for people to enjoy. So if you think I'm funny in the slightest on this video, I am. You should watch more of that stuff as well. But yeah, no, mostly a Monster Hunter video essayist.
Gotcha. Now, CR-Volcanic okay to call you, or do you want me to call you by your given name?
My given name? Connor is way more comfortable for me. The funny thing with CR-Volcanic is I was thinking that up. It has to do with my game tag that I have on PlayStation that I've had for a couple of years. It's like volcanic crayon, so I just took the C and the R and then volcanic. Like, that flows pretty good. But then I've done a couple of other collabs with like Ark or with Skeweye Skull, and they'll refer to me as Volcanic by name. I'm like, oh, that feels gross. It feels like I made my username when I was 15 years old. Oh God, don't call me that.
It's like being called dinosaur or something.
I'm not a child. Don't call me that.
It's funny you said crayon, because I thought the CR was for Connor.
I mean, it kind of goes either way, but yeah, it's funny. I put a 2-word generator to look for a gamer tag for PlayStation. I got a couple of them, and I got Volcanic Crayon. Like, that's awesome. I'm gonna use that. So I turned that into my YouTube name, basically.
Goes hard, especially with the Teostra theming and everything. Is like, okay, yeah. it all kind of fits together in a way.
It matches.
Now, you mentioned Monster Hunter videos, Monster Hunter video essays, all these different things. How were you introduced to Monster Hunter?
So, back in around 2010, I was out at a buddy's house. I came back. And if anybody remembers how the Wii operated, the Nintendo Wii, it had like these fake like channels. You download all these channels off of like the Wii shop or whatever. And there was one that was pretty much nothing but upcoming trailers for future video games and whatnot. My brother and my dad just flipped through them. I got back from a buddy's house and they said, hey, Connor, we found this game upcoming where you're basically sword fighting dragons and dinosaurs. So we looked up like the website for Monster Hunter Try. Like, this looks awesome. So my brother and I got Monster Hunter Try. It was more so his game than it was mine. We both got into it. I'm more the one who stuck around with it. My brother's more of a FPS type of guy nowadays. But I stuck around with more kind of fantasy swordy boys. And got into it with Monster Hunter Try. I think a lot of people did. Unlike a lot of the stories that I hear, though, I stuck with it. I had no idea what I was doing. I mostly got hard carried online by people who I didn't really know how the skill system worked until Monster Hunter 4. At that point, I played Try. I loved it so much. My brother and I loved it so much that we went back, bought a PSP, got Freedom Unite. I bought a 3DS off of a buddy to play 3 Ultimates. I used some Christmas money to buy myself a personal PS4 for World when I went to college. Bought myself a Switch for Generations Ultimate. I've bought a lot of hardware for the specific purposes of playing Monster Hunter, and I've really just kind of stuck with it for the past 15 years at this point. There's been a couple of on and off periods with certain games that I liked more than others, and downtime between releases, but it's really been my most played, my most thought about, and my favorite game franchise for the better part of 15 years.
Wow. So you've been all in on Monster Hunter. what exactly are your favorite aspects of Monster Hunter?
I think what's really held me at this point, the monsters for sure. I think that's probably the easy answer that most people are going to give, is just being attached to the enemies. You know, their design, their combat, making their gear, making their weapons, how they look, how their personalities work. Are they going to come back into the next game? How are they going to change? How are they going to adapt? Are they going to get stronger? Are they going to get weaker? That's definitely like the big selling point. Everybody's got their collection of favorites. Everybody's got their guys. I mean, it's what we come here to do, is to engage with these boss battles. And I think more so as I've gotten a little bit older, more realized how the game works, and more just kind of settled into what I want to do. I think a big aspect of what makes these games fun for me is the theory crafting of it all, with especially sets, and then realizing or trying to recognize what the game mechanics are going to offer me. What are the limitations of these armor sets? What are the gimmicks of the monsters? Are they strong enough to bring a counterpoint? What weapon matchup do I like? We can probably get into this more and more, but especially when you get into some of the stronger bosses with some of the more prolific gimmicks. I made a guide for Omega recently, and I did a video that I was really happy with regarding Lunastra, but I have a big fondness for, what do I have? What is this game offering me? What does my opponent do? What do my weapons do in response to that opponent? How can I mitigate its abilities, or deflect its abilities, or fight through its abilities? And the set doesn't even necessarily have to be that good. My clear time doesn't need to be the highest. It's really just kind of looking at the mechanics and the skills and the armor and the weapons versus the monster's toolkit and gimmicks. And it's treating all of those factors of Monster Hunter like they're little brain teasers. I don't need to be the best at the game. I have no intention to be the best at the game. It's not really what I'm going for. It's really to just kind of like flex that little muscle and have fun with the tools that the game gives me, and use it to just try and take down these opponents and treat them like puzzles, like brain teasers. I think that is probably become my favorite aspect of Monster Hunter at this point.
Right on, man. Right on. That is a very fun aspect, especially for me as well. Like learning the mechanics and the interaction between different weapons and those mechanics, and kind of like being able to theorize, okay, maybe this one could counter this monster a little bit better. I'm an extremely lazy player. I don't like to play bad matchups. I guess I'll put it that way. And so I try to avoid matchups that are going to be a little bit harder, and I try to stack the weights in my favor. Even if I can like mechanically play good enough to overcome a monster with a hard matchup, I don't have the weapon allegiance in my blood to just stick by a weapon that I know will be a harder matchup. Unless I'm extremely lazy in progression or something and I don't feel like making multiple weapons. I'm just a pretty lazy player in a lot of ways, even though I spend hours upon hours in these games grinding. But I think the way that it resonates with you is a little different. It's just funny, that point of relativity, thinking about it, because for you, I think it sounds like it's just straight up for the love of the game. But for me, I love this game, but I want to like dominate it. You know, like I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want it to be a puzzle. I want it to be a domination thing. Like I want to destroy the monster.
Sure.
Now, Connor, what I enjoy about your channel and your content is that you have a nice mixture of laid-back information presentation, but with very in-depth deep dives into multiple things in the Monster Hunter series. You've had Frontier Monster breakdowns. You've had like you said, the Lunastra breakdown. I actually learned a lot from that video, by the way, the breakdown of the different mechanics.
I learned a lot making that video.
It was pretty sick. I was like, wow, I didn't even know. And you also had recently a 10-hour retrospective deep dive on Monster Hunter World and Iceborne.
Yes, sir.
That was it dwarfs my 4.5 hour long video. But you certainly have a wide range. Now, slight glaze aside, I do want to actually ask about one of the points you made in the 10-hour world video that I think was pretty profound by nature. There was a period in the video where you discussed some differences between objectivity and subjectivity as you reviewed the game and provided analysis. One of the statements was that you found that under your scrutiny, Rise Sunbreak is objectively better than World Iceborne, but you enjoy World Iceborne more. Forgive me if I butchered that point, but do you mind providing a light elaboration on that for anyone who has not seen your Rise or World breakdown videos?
Yeah, you got the spark notes of it correct. So I think we're probably going to be going a little bit broader into the dichotomy kind of more broadly regarding objectivity, subjectivity, how they relate to media analysis, and how challenging they could be for game analysis specifically. So with World and Iceborne versus Rise and Sunbreak, I guess we can kind of start to talk about how we want to lead into it. I think with how you analyze video games, especially how you compare video games especially, is very, very tricky. I went back actually and I re-recorded that segment entirely about objective analysis because I was not happy with how I presented, how I wanted to go about indulging in that topic. Because I think objectivity when it comes to analysis can be kind of a touchy no-no word for some people, because there is this, I think, ill-perceived notion of I am making a correct statement when I say that Iceborne is inferior or lesser than Sunbreak on an objective level. Basically, when you are talking about an objective assessment, all you're really doing is going over fact-based statements. So I think it is a matter of fact that Sunbreak rewards hunt diversity more than Iceborne does. I think it is a discernible fact that the augment system in Sunbreak's weapons rewards you for hunting a diverse range of monsters and is far less repetitive. And that is a traceable fact due to if you are augmenting the specific thing I came up with for Iceborne, talking about its augment system. The rarity 12 weapons are the best weapons in the game. Those are the ones that you really should be putting the most investment into. One of the best augments in the game is the health augment, because it is just free vampirism on every hit. So it's free health recovery anytime you hit the monster, basically. If you want to put the health regen on the rarity 12 weapon, for any rarity 12 weapon, it is, I believe, tempered Namiel parts, and it is normal Zinogre parts out of the Guiding Lance. For any singular health, level 1 health augment on any singular rare 12 weapon. That is an objectively traceable statement. Now, if you're looking at the augment system in Sunbreak, they use a little bit more of a VAT system, where they'll have some hard requirements for some augments just to prove that you're actually fighting monsters up to a certain standard, but at the same time, there is this dumping mechanic where you just need to acquire a certain amount of points based on which parts you're utilizing, or there's different points attributed to different anomaly parts that you're using. All you need to do is hit a certain amount and not use specific parts. So it is objectively traceable that there is more of a reward for hunting diversity in Sunbreak than there is in Iceborne. And then on a subjective level, I prefer that my Monster Hunter game is incentivizing me to be hunting a number of monsters, to be accessing a good chunk of the roster. One thing that we talked a lot about when World and Iceborne was a big deal is that there's a lot of really interesting, really cool monsters, especially in that mid-level. Your Paolumus, your Radobans, I like Great Gyros quite a bit, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff, and they really just kind of fall out of rotation. Sunbreak really doesn't have that issue. So to kind of go back to the broader points, and there's other points like this that I bring up in the review, there are these fact-based, traceable statements about what the mechanics in Sunbreak do versus what the mechanics in Iceborne do. I look at the both of those, and I say that objectively speaking, Sunbreak is going to reward you for hunting more stuff, different stuff, a greater variety stuff. It has greater hunting freedom to it. And if we're looking at the Monster Hunter games and actually kind of want to be fighting a whole bunch of these bosses and interacting with a whole bunch of them, well then on that level, I would say that Sunbreak is a superior experience. And there's a whole slew of other things, like Sunbreak objectively, I would say, has less of these free healing options that are being peppered all over you all of the time. I would say that Sunbreak objectively has better map traversal due to the fact that there's a lot more downtime with things like wire bugs and also things like the palamutes, whereas you're a little bit more boots on the ground or at the mercy of the camp placement in World and Iceborne and how fairly those are spread out, where there are some maps where I think really struggle with that, namely I think some of the more vertical ones like the Coral Highlands and the Ancient Forest. So when I am comparing those two games, I am looking at what is true about this, what is true about that, and then comparing the two off of each other. And then that is where subjectivity is going to blend in, because there's not really this true definitive marker of like, okay, like what is actually necessarily better, that a Monster Hunter game focuses entirely on its top level roster or that it spreads things out. I don't think there's any way you can objectively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove that one is better, but one is better than the other. And subjectively, I prefer the better diversity. So based on objective statements, I find that Sunbreak is the better game at providing that experience. It's a very long answer, but I think I have to be concise with this kind of thing. I hope you got what you wanted from that.
I did. So I like the notion of, objectivity is based upon like truths, or, in a nefarious way also could be lies, unintentional or not. So in subjectivity has to deal with the notion of like anecdotals, personal feelings, vibes, and whatnot. This is something that is hard to reconcile with journalists, with video essayists, with criticism in every single category. People have a hard time expressing their thoughts. People have a hard time not being exaggeratory in a lot of ways. And in some ways, people will get different types of backlash. Some people will use extreme language like, I don't like playing Greatsword because it requires you to hit trade every single monster. Objectively, that's not true. But your personal experience, that may be true because you haven't been able to understand monster openings, what types of moves you should be using at what time. So maybe to you, in your current skill level, you may have to hit trade every single time you're trying to land your big moves. And that's a real experience that happens to a lot of Greatsword players. They hit trade, they get frustrated because they definitely don't do as much damage as the monster does. And so that may be something that may sour people towards playing Greatsword. But objectively, it's just untrue. You don't have to hit trade with Greatsword. You don't have to do this or that. It's just part of your personal experience. It's also something that is reflective on, there's a lot of people that may, they may go from world or even just base world. No clutch claw shortcut, no slinger burst shortcut to TCS. They go from regular Greatsword, where a lot of the damage is localized in a TCS, and you have to either tackle to get there or actually use your charge attacks. Or you could just not even charge them. But still though, you have to kind of like ramp up to your big damage move, and you have to kind of commit to this specific, to a varying degree, window of being able to correct the arc of your actual attacks. But once you've committed TCS, you're committed. That second strike is going where the first one is going. And then you got wilds, where focus mode exists, you're able to rotate, and you're even able to pull a full 180 mid TCS 1-2. And on paper you could be like, oh, it's not just easy, but my entire game experience is easy, therefore wilds is completely much easier than these other games that I played with TCS style. It could be for a multitude of reasons. You didn't know you could use tackle when you're playing through world. Slinger burst may not have existed. Maybe Slinger burst did exist and you just chose not to use it. Maybe you're having a good time in wilds, but a lot of Wilds greatsword players, they'll tell you that the mastery of the greatsword in Wilds isn't to landing TCS, it's landing the offsets. And maybe you're good at landing TCS, but maybe you're not so good at landing the offsets yet. And so like there's varying degrees of mastery, and there's varying degrees of weapon changes. There's varying degrees of personal experience while you're learning these weapons. And depending on what weapon you might play, that may determine whether or not you found something more difficult or not. One thing that I always talk about in my videos, or I've talked about multiple times on my videos, is the fact that I mained Insect Glaive in New Gen, other than Monster Hunter Wilds. And Insect Glaive had the privilege, starting with World, to have a better pole vault with an air dash and a prolonging aerial attack, the helicopter. And so using that, I was able to basically ignore 90% of the mechanics of every single monster in the game on a whim if I wanted to. And so I couldn't relate to a lot of the things that a lot of people were struggling with in World. And I honestly didn't really know how to play Monster Hunter very, very well until right before Iceborne came out. And it all started because I watched a Pochi Insect Glaive speedrun, and I realized, hey, maybe I shouldn't be spamming helicopter in the air. Maybe I should throw in that tornado slash here and there.
Yeah, these Insect Glaive players are never actually using the vault thing. That was something I learned eventually. It's like, when do they jump around? They never do.
Yeah. It's so funny how experiences can change, anecdotes can be different, but then anecdotes also have the very, very big problem of they can get muddied up. So, for example, Devil Joe eating his own tail, it's been disproven. Nergigante one-shotting no matter what gear you're in, that's also been disproven. There's all sorts of different things that people like have core memories of, but it's not necessarily true. And the problem with these anecdotes that they're not really verified, or they can't be verifiable. You know, some people can say unbelievable things and you can call them a liar, but you can't disprove them. You know, you don't know whether or not someone actually lived through an experience or not. And unless like it's something completely foundationally provable, like Devil Joe eating his tail or whatever. But you know, I could lie to you and tell you, hey, I've played Monster Hunter 1 through Monster Hunter 4U, and I've played all these old gen games. I didn't card a single time. You know, I made it through it without a cinch. I didn't even have to upgrade gear or anything. I didn't have to make any gear. And like, you could call me a liar, and you know, most people wouldn't believe me, but you can't prove that I'm lying. You know, you don't have video evidence of my playthrough. So it's such a funny aspect, like objectivity, subjectivity, and some of the issues with like journalists and critics in general is that there's a certain modicum of authority and influence that people have by default, especially whenever they start getting an audience. And I think that like very, very sober-minded, realistic viewpoints like yours, where you are able to even like, you're able to go through the cognitive dissonance of being like, I think one is objectively better, but this one I still enjoy more. This one's my favorite. That's such a like useful skill, and it's such an honest way of presenting information. You know, some people, they like to have people agree with them, or they want to like come across more power. You know, they want to bring a point with more power out. And so why in the world, in the video, the 10-hour video that you've made about World and Iceborne, that you've been dedicating your blood, sweat, and tears into, that you've been singing songs of praises to, and looking under it with a microscope, why you would insert, I think Rise of Sunbreak is objectively better in this way, but this one is still my favorite. It's a journalistic and critical honesty that a lot of people lack, but also it's not that I found that it didn't detract from your video whatsoever. In fact, I found that it kind of bolstered it and strengthened it in a lot of different ways. Here is a guy that's not insecure about the game that he likes, and he's able to willingly acknowledge where other games in the series may have done better. But at the same time, he knows and understands, with all of this stuff, this is like my darling. This is my first dance. This is my muse. But at the same time, I can see her imperfections, and you have definitely dove deep down and seen those imperfections. You've seen every pore, every single hole there is. And I think that adds a lot of cred to the video itself and to your critical honesty as a not necessarily a journalist, but I guess Monster Hunter YouTuber.
Sure.
Something I really enjoy. A lot of people can be really heavy-handed with their points, and in times when they really don't have to be. And I think it's a nice skill for people in general that they should learn, that sometimes a gentle fist is good and can actually garner more respect.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. But yeah, I thought it was going to be funny to say that, yeah, no, this, that, and the other thing. I still think that Rise and Sunbreak has less Sunbreak especially. I gotta be honest with you, dude. The more distance we are away from Sunbreak, it being over, the more I'm like, fuck, that game was good. Holy shit, Sunbreak was awesome. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie one way or the other. Cause with Iceborne, I don't know if anything is quite going to dethrone the gauntlet that was the title updates of Iceborne. I mean, Iceborne was great one way or the other, but then it was Rajang, then it was Stygian into Safi Jiva raids, and then it was Furious Rajang into the massive overhaul of Raging Bracky. That goes into Electrion's overhaul. Frostfang kind of appeared, and he was still cool. And then you go into fucking Fatalis, and it's just, that is... First impressions are really important. Final impressions are also very important. And what a just titanic ending to that game. And then, the music was awesome for that game. The Celiana Gathering Hub was extremely homely. I streamed that game front to back for the second time with the guys and with the fans, and it was the first time doing raids in full hub multiplayer. And, it was this kind of return to form for Monster Hunter for me after, honestly, I was a bit disappointed with the original Generations game. And to this day, base Generations is my least played Monster Hunter. So it was this big draw back in for me. At the time, it was something that I kind of always wondered if Monster Hunter could be with, the seamlessness and everything. So, as rough as World and Iceborne could be, as better as some other games could be, that subjective experience is never going to be taken away. There is an adoration for when that game came out, as it was running, as it was developing, as it was ending, and then the real massive rekindling of love that I had for it when we introduced our friend Austin back to it and played it top to bottom again. That, like, I don't think a better Monster Hunter game is really not going to be able to take that away. At the same time, if you just want to be not cold about it, but just a little dispassionate and really kind of dig into it, well, okay, let's look at things. One of the big things I drew attention to is the individualized gimmicks that World and Iceborne brought in. And I think even compared to Wilds, and maybe, I don't know, Rise is also very, very new toy dense, but World had a specific issue where its stuff was very, very self-cannibalistic, to the extent that I think the developers might have underestimated how certain things were going to flow together. The way that the mantles operated with the clutch claw, operated with the Fatalis armor, and all of that stuff, and the agitator bonuses and agitator secrets, and the built-in properties that they had with the auto rage mechanic with clutch claw, and you kind of get to the fact that Iceborne has a big issue with mechanical cannibalization, is one of the major drawbacks I was seeing, to the point where there is some build and gameplay bottlenecking in World and Iceborne, where what you're probably going to be doing is, unless you are playing meta, which I think meta might be Glider Mantle because of its slottage, though other people can correct me because I am never really up on hardcore meta. But what a lot of people are going to be doing is you're taking Rocksteady or Temporal, you're running 2 Piece Fatalis with 5-point Agitator Charm, the other 2 points of Agitator gemmed in, and you're jumping right onto a monster, you're head turning 3 times, you either wall shot or you don't, you auto proc Enrage, and you go from there. So that's some build bottlenecking, it's some gameplay bottlenecking. The Claw was a very demanding mechanic with a lot of upkeep, and it was designed in such a way that it should have been challenging to operate off of, but at the same time, the mantles just have you have these bypasses. And then there's some stuff I was also talking about. The restrictions on the augments. There's some restrictions on travel. The Tail Raider system kind of blew chunks. Like when it just stops and it's sniffing around for the monster for a couple of seconds. I'm like, yeah, I know it's supposed to be immersive. Like, oh, you're sniffing out the monster trails, whatever. I'm like, move. Like, come on, you stupid Jagras. The Rathalos is like 2 zones that way. Like, come on, let's get a fucking move on right now. And yeah, no, it's really kind of looking at a bunch of stuff like that. And I'm trying to remember some other points that were brought up in the video that would have go either for or against it. But that was really just kind of the thing, was looking at the two, because I no one even really asked for it, but I thought it would be fun because I did Rise and Sunbreak with a celebration critique, and now I'm doing World and Iceborne, and World versus Rise is just like such a bitter blood feud that the community has. Probably, I don't know, you might have your finger on the pulse of it a little bit better, but I feel like World versus Rise might be like one of the most bitter feuds that Monster Hunter games has probably ever had between one another. So I thought it would be funny, honestly, to go and be like, all right, which one's better? And honestly, I found that Sunbreak just had ideas that were better executed, ideas that were less cannibalistic, traversal that was more fun, mechanics that I thought were just a little bit more intuitive to use. I thought that the build diversity was more interesting. I thought the hunt diversity was more interesting. And here are all of these reasons why I have this opinion on the game. And going through these provable things, I'm like, yeah, I think Sunbreak is the overall better put together thing, and I have no insecurity about that.
The World Rise blood feud. Raking the coals. That's pretty funny. I didn't know that was like one of the motivations behind that, but it ended up being like a really fun point, because it, like I said, to me it added on to the video in such a fun little playful way of like, hey, I like both of these games in a fun way, but World is special, to me personally, and that was just really fun. But it's such a funny aspect to game review and critique, because when you look at the nature of, I'm not gonna like get into a rant about access journalism and things to that in that way, but the ideal of the rat race of getting reviews out on YouTube and journalists writing reviews, you oftentimes have people blitzing through the game, and they have to drum up a review really quickly in order to get that early reaping of all the different people coming to see if the game's going to be worth buying or not, or what exactly is this person going to say. And you want to get it out early because the people that are watching reviews, they're already watching so many reviews at once, and they only have so much bandwidth. So if you come out late to the party, you might miss your chance with some of the viewers.
Sure.
Or if you come out early, you get to expose yourself to people you might not have been able to expose yourself to algorithmically, and that is also a big win, because you may potentially reap more subscribers. So there's all sorts of different reasons to come out fast, but you'll come out with limited information. You'll come out with false information, and you still have to present yourself in a professional manner and in a confident manner so people take you seriously. No one wants to hear a reviewer talk about how they might have liked the game or the game might be good. They want to hear the game is good or the game is bad. There's just a lot of issues with critiquing in general, like the culture of it. But sometimes you'll have like absolute gems come out of nowhere, where someone who doesn't really have as much skin in the game comes in and they put their initial thoughts of a video, and they don't really have like a financial or time incentive. It's just pure, honest, here's my experience as a new guy, or you'll have like people that are really seasoned and they'll be like, here's my 10-hour world video that breaks down like in-depth mechanics. And I like the nature of both, because one of them isn't necessarily selling whether the game's good or bad. It's a purely like subjective thought piece, like here was my experiences with it as a newer person. And then one of them is, hey, I'm putting it all on the table. This is Monster Hunter. This is a Monster Hunter world. This is Monster Hunter Rise. And I'm going to try to represent it as objectively as possible and throw in some of my own little subjective viewpoints as flavor.
Yep.
And so like, but critiquing it's so hard. It's so hard because you don't want to have to say, this is my subjective opinion every time you make a point. But if you don't do that, sometimes people will take everything you say as gospel. And as we know, there are things that can be just true or false. There are things that are not necessarily, they're not in either of those camps. If you like 4U Greatsword more than World Greatsword or Wild's Greatsword, it's because it's a different type of greatsword. You might not like it because it's better. In fact, what even is better? It's just different. All these flavors of greatsword for different monsters. Maybe you could be like, this greatsword would have fared better against this monster, back in the day. Or but if you brought TCS greatsword to 4U, it probably might be harder to fight Apex Rajang, instead of the more simple draw-oriented greatsword style. There are like different objective aspects like that, but oftentimes it gets muddied up. It'll be like, I like this greatsword strictly better than the other greatsword. It is better. And it's like, in what way? In what way is it possible? Is it better to get to the combo faster? Is it better as in it's higher on the speedrunner charts, tier lists? Is it better because you just resonate with the moveset better? There's so many things that get left unsaid with critique. And whenever things get left unsaid like that, it's up to the audience to assume what this person means. And you can see that in like comment sections everywhere, dude. You hop into any hot spot video, or like if there's some kind of drama or a harsh critique or anything, at any like kind of point that can be nitpicked, someone might nitpick it, and then there'll be like 5 or 6 people that may have agreed with the point, and they may have different reasons for agreeing with it, and they'll be like, this is what the creator meant. And so like the relationship between the audience and the reviewer, or the relationship between the audience and the critic, there's a funny push and pull where people will like automatically assume the worst or automatically assume the best. And oftentimes it has to do with whether they agree with the critique or not. And I just want to know, with your gigantic retrospectives and everything, have you ever come across that for your own videos where you have seen like people misrepresenting your video in a positive way or even a negative way? And if there were like any moments like that that stuck out, and like what you thought about that?
Okay. All right. You brought up a lot of stuff.
Feel free to elaborate on anything that I brought up, by the way.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I can go off of what you just said. Let's start with what you were just talking about with anyone who's... I'm going to be honest, my comment section is typically really good. I usually, I think the creator is going to kind of cultivate an audience and a mindset and a mentality around themselves. Usually you kind of get a bit of a reflection back, right? So normally what I'll get back, every once in a while I'll get someone who's rude. And fortunately the people who are rude are usually not all that intelligent, or their comments are usually not particularly intelligent. on the rare occasion that I get something like really, really rude back, I'm like, you thought about this for 3 seconds, or you got it from a different YouTuber. You shush. But normally what I am very careful about doing is certain caveats and certain word choice when I go into an assessment. Normally what I will try to do is, I think I go for a sort of humble confidence. I kind of try to present myself as I am doing the best that I can here, but I understand that I am human. I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but objective can be kind of where the people will turn their noses up at, because there is an inference that, oh, you're going for objective analysis. That means you think you're right. No. The big thing with it is, like I made a whole point of, you're trying to make assessments based simply on facts. That is something that you always have to communicate, something you need to be honest about, something that you need to get across with your language. Is just because you are trying to go for fact-based statements, you are trying to speak objectively when you're going for analysis, you also need to make the concession that you can get things wrong, that you can slip things up, that you can miss certain detailings and all that stuff, which is honestly a big reason why I re-recorded the segment on the objective analysis, because I didn't want to communicate this fact that I have this, my way of weighing things is right, I have the proper mathematics, I am telling you that Sunbreak is the better game than Iceborne. No. I have these facts, I have these statements, I have these assessments, I've looked at the games and what they do. Based on my understanding, based on certain weighings that I have done, which I'll get back to that portion in a second, and based on, like I said, my understanding, based on what's been provided to me, based on what I understand in this moment, this is my conclusion. And I made a bit to say, someone else can also make fact-based assessments, collect a whole bunch of observations based on facts between the two games, and line things up in a certain way that they say that, no, Iceborne is the better put together product. So going for objective analysis is not a competition to see who is right, is really just trying to delve into what is actually happening. And two people who are going for fact-based analysis can still have debate and have discussion and have different weighings and disagree with one another. Just they have different interpretations of facts, they have different weighings of facts, and all that kind of stuff. So I invited, if you think there are reasons why Iceborne is just factually better, lay them out for me. Like, that discussion is welcome. And that is language that I'll use if I'm not certain on something, because sometimes you are just certain. So, like, lay that card out on the table. Like, I know this is the case. In other cases where, like, I'm not certain how this is, but this is the information I was given, this is secondhand info that I'm aware of, to my best of my knowledge, this is how this and that works. And I think those caveats, having that humility, that concession to your own ignorance, just putting that out there, that you are aware of the fact that you can be wrong on these things, aware of the fact that you're not certain, then a lot of people will be, if they know better than you, they will be much more forgiving with you. So I will say things confidently, but I will try not to say things arrogantly. I won't kick and buck and pout and whine and say, no, this is how it is, listen to me, I'm the man with the YouTube talking stick. But I'll be wrong all the time. You know, I say it all the time. I am not super up on the meta or the optimization of the way that skills works or the way the gameplay works. So I will say multiple times in my videos, I am not certain that this is the best option. I am not certain that this is exactly how this works, quite how this matchup is. This is what I've heard from the grapevine. And usually if I'm getting corrected, someone will say, oh no, it's kind of like this. And I'll go, oh, thank you. So that's usually the experience that I get. Is there anything else that you brought up that I wanted to talk about? So there's the whole language thing, the concession thing, using that very kind of specific talking points.
YouTube rat race, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much more to say that. I think it's generally honest. If I were, I thought about this before. If I were to get an advanced copy, because I prefer the method that I do. If you follow my channel, I did a review for Monster Hunter Wilds, and that one came out probably about maybe 3 weeks to a month after the game came out. When I had maybe about 120 hours in. It was after everybody else's review. I am also going to re-review the game once all the updates are for it. I'm going to do the same thing for the expansion, and then for post-expansion, and then I'll probably do a celebration critique of Wilds in full in a few years. But I've thought about it, and if I were to get an advanced copy, for the sake of honesty, what I would say from the top is this is an experience that I had playing the game in a set window with a set experience, needing to get to a due date. And if, honestly, I'm going to be real, if I'm not allowed to say that, I probably would, there's going to have to be certain things where if I can't say certain things, I'm not going to take an advanced copy because I value my word and I value my honesty. So I would need to be honest with the fact that, like, this is a review copy analysis of Monster Hunter Wilds Ultimate. I will very likely be returning to this and going back over it more concisely. But for the purposes of a review copy for this such and such, like, this is what I'm thinking about it right now that I've got, I don't know, say like 60 hours, and I've been really trying to digest it kind of quick for the purposes of this thing. If I'm not allowed to make that caveat, I might not even take that, honestly, because I value, as I was saying earlier, I value being very transparent with my language, and I think that is something that allows you to be confident and allows you to be assertive without being some dickhead asshole that gets things wrong. And I have 16,000 subscribers. Get your own fucking YouTube channel, guy who plays this game more than me and knows the numbers better than I do.
Yeah. I do like the points about, like, the cultivation of your own watchers, and like how people are typically very respectful, especially like if you have a body of work already and you've developed that kind of relationship as a creator and watcher kind of deal. As a creator and as someone who makes these deep dives and monster analysis and everything, do you feel that pool of responsibility in any way with, like, any influence you've been given over people on YouTube? Do you feel any sort of responsibility as, like, get people to, one thing I notice is you sometimes, like, go over monsters that people dislike or people have a bad opinion about, and you try to, like, shed light on these monsters in a different perspective, in a kind of, hey, I get it, but here's some things you might not have considered. Do you feel like that is part of what drives you to make these videos?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just the kind of integrity of it, is like the only real main agenda, unless I'm being silly, right, is to just kind of be honest, honestly, and just to try to be fair. So yeah, I mean, that was the big thing. I know that Lunastra is not a very well-liked monster. I think Lunastra is a very misunderstood monster. I don't know if that's directly what you were referring to.
That one,
but...
Lavasia.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, honestly, it's just a thing of, like, okay, yeah, no, I get it. Let's be fair. Let's look beyond a first impression. Let's actually, like, try to understand. Let's look under the hood more so. And I think a lot of people, I mean, to be fair, not everybody has to go up to the same standards of analysis. Some people are just gonna kind of go things at a certain level. Some dude who's working a 9 to 5 is not expected to know how Lunastra hit values and tripping zones work. All right, a little bit of that is like, all right, Capcom, you could have said something about how this fucking monster works before you drop it. I think they've definitely learned their lesson from her. That was one point that I dropped. I said about that video is, like, World was not like the greatest mechanical teacher. There is some stuff you can learn about her through trial and error, but like you went for like a game that had like Great Jagras and Kulu Yaku and all these little guys that kind of exist just to die, and then you drop like the most mechanically in-depth, complicated thing you might have ever fucking made. Like maybe you should have said a couple of things about like the tripping zones, or like how for the love of God, can you explain how Elder Seal works in that game? I have to do research to learn how Elder Seal works in that game. Oh my God, they don't explain. Even to this day, still, is like latent power activates under certain circumstances. Like, what does it have to be a fucking full moon? Like, how the hell does this skill work? You change it every fucking game. Yeah, so there is that aspect to it. So there is a journalistic integrity, if you want to call it, of like, all right, let's just be fair. Let's really kind of try and crack it. On some greater thing with responsibility, like I don't believe that I am personally responsible for the in real life actions of the people who listen to me, unless I like unironically tell them to do things, you know, then I'm liable for shit like that. But at the same time, you know, when you are a creator, you're still a human being, you're still a fallible human being, you try to be humble to that, yada yada yada. But I think it is worthwhile to remember that you are the figurehead at the head of a microculture. You know, the people around you, the fans that you cultivate, they'll talk a little bit more like you do. They'll act a little bit more like you do. They'll respond to the jokes that you make. You know, they'll stick around and they'll kind of feed into what is expected, what is acceptable, what is the air and the atmosphere, and you have a responsibility for creating that in yourself. So that is why, you know, my comment sections in my YouTube videos are usually very well thought out, pretty respectful, pretty well structured. If someone is disagreeing with me, they'll usually say it pretty thoroughly, or they'll say, "You're coping, Wild's bad, I still can't run it on my PC." I'm like, yeah, I didn't talk about performance once in this video, thank you very much, Jimmy. And then on my streams, alternatively, because it's the atmosphere and the culture goes from very well thought out and very meticulous from my YouTube comment section to my YouTube chat, which is stupid gremlin goober hours. So your fans will respond to you. They will bounce off of you. They will glom on to the culture that you cultivate. So I do feel some responsibility for that, which is why I try to have my language in my YouTube videos be what I just talked about: authoritative, respectful, humble, yet confident. And that is, I think, a really big network of targets that I try to hit when I'm going into analysis.
Cool. I appreciate like your insight and your overall thoughtfulness towards it all. It's definitely been in a sea full of endless subjective statements being dressed as objective statements, and I am right, you're wrong, here's my anecdote, this is proof of every single thing that I'm saying objectively. If you disagree with me, you're a coper. Like in a sea of all of this, you know, like having, I mean, what you said about, you know, being a guy behind a screen, you know, at the end of the day, it is very true. You know, like we're people too. Sub counts, they have no bearing on the correctness of any statement. They have no bearing on the actual like complete and utter authority over the entire community or anything like that. But at the same time, looking at it from like a responsible manner of, if I want to cultivate a place for like-minded people or even like a respectful room for discussion, a lot of it is on me and the way that I address things and the way that I try to represent that in myself. And hopefully people will follow suit if they enjoy the way that I handle things. That is definitely very refreshing and a very important thing that a lot of people, it's lost on so many people. I think so many people are cavalier with any influence that they can get. They don't necessarily think about it. They don't necessarily care about dressing things up in a humble manner or in a way that will try not to inspire complete and utter chaos and anger in people, but rather provide a place where people can feel understood, or even if maybe not necessarily understood, but they have somewhere that they could dump out their viewpoints and at least be met with dignity and respect. And that is it's nice, man. It's nice. And that we luckily in the Monster Hunter community, we do have some people that are very good about it, and it could be so much worse. You know, it could be like some of the other communities in gaming discussion.
For sure.
But it is, I just want you to know, man, I respect you. I thank you for coming on my channel, for, you know, going under the grill and letting me ask you these questions and about what makes you tick.
Absolutely.
And about your videos, man. It's been a pleasure. I know a lot of the people that watch my videos are fans of yours, and I hope that they get to enjoy this little sneak peek. I hope your fans get to enjoy the sneak peek and some of what makes you tick, man, because you have a great channel. You make good shit, man. I just enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, right back at you. Honestly, I think we have a fair bit of crossover. Honestly, I think we do share some people, but I will be more than happy if some of my guys go your way if they haven't heard of you, and if it happens vice versa, awesome. But yeah, no, I kind of closing sentiment on the whole thing. It's not about being right and wrong. It's simply, if you're talking about this kind of thing, it's about doing your best and being humble to the fact that it was just, you know, your best in that moment. And, you know, it is more so, at least for me, and I would hope, you know, if anybody listens to this and finds it at all inspiring to make your own stuff, or if you are making your own stuff and you do value analytics and all that kind of thing, yeah, like I said, it's more about doing your best. Be self-respectful, honestly. You know, it's your name when you put stuff out there. You're putting your name and your brand on the things that you put out in the world and the things that you say. You know, I feel like you should have respect for the work that you do. You should have not even just pride, but respect for the work that you do. Honestly, I think that's really important. I would say the only other thing that I don't think I really got like the chance to get into, but circles back to one of the conversations we were having a little bit earlier in, you know, some of the conclusions you draw, and especially one objective assessment against another. One thing I think that is really important to remember, I think, with games especially, it is very complicated, and I think it is best to kind of try to get out of your way a little bit when it comes to mechanics. You know, when you are trying to do a assessment of, say, like, something that is mostly just story, so a movie or a book or a comic or a graphic novel or a television show, there's a lot of other aspects like, say, prose or cinematography, costume design, music, and all that kind of stuff. But with stuff that's non-interactive, usually the biggest assessment is, does the story work? You know, are the mechanics consistent with one another? Are the characters consistent with who they say they are? If they're not, is there consistencies beyond that? If you are going to be analyzing games, I think subjectivity gets a little bit more important due to the fact that everybody is going to weigh certain things differently, because a lot of it is how you interact, how you choose to interact with it, what you interact with, what you don't interact with, blah, 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 blah. So I think that is one more really important point for anybody to take away from this conversation that I didn't really manage to sneak in, is be humble to the way that other people weigh things, and take some consideration into how you weigh things, because that is going to make it so that assessments and conclusions, I think, especially for games, are going to be all over the place. But yeah, no, the closing thoughts, like I was saying, be wary of the fact that you're putting your name on things. Make things that you respect, that you're self-respectful of. Take some pride in what you do. And it ain't about you. It's about your integrity and your work. Just do the best that you can. Doesn't even have to be like the most drawn out, the most in-depth or whatever. Just whatever scope you're going for, just do the best that you can. Try to be as simple, or try to be as honest, try to be as concise and try to be as well read as you can. You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna fuck things up, you're gonna get things wrong. Just be humble to that fact and make sure that you do things that you are proud of.
I agree. I would also add in, be flexible. You know, don't approach everything with such a rigid mindset. Try to be, in some forms, open-minded in a lot of ways. Part of that humility is open-mindedness. You know, a lot of people, whenever someone disagrees with them, the main thing that they think about is that they disagreed with them. They don't think about why and what potential value there is. And so there's always something new to learn. There's always a new way to hone your own viewpoints. And hell, being exposed to viewpoints that disagree with you in some form can help bolster your own arguments. You know, you can either strengthen it to be able to overcome a potential argument, or you find that your argument maybe was founded upon wrong information, or maybe you find that someone else's anecdote is also valuable and you thought something was impossible when it really wasn't, or you may have thought something is possible that you never verified, but it actually isn't possible. So like there's so many different areas anyone can be wrong in. And I know for myself, like I am wrong often, and I learn a lot from a lot of people. I watch a lot of different videos, and I try to surround myself with people that are much more knowledgeable than me on various topics. I know that I just got off the back of a series with a guy who specializes in Monster Hunter research and specifically has written a lot of guides for Monster Hunter DOS. And I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot from like the old school crew about like different games across the genre in general as I explore the games myself that I haven't been able to hit yet. And so the ability to learn, the ability to have an open mind, the ability to do that while also maintaining confidence in your own viewpoints. Part of that confidence is the fact that you're learning so much. You know, it doesn't have to be such a rigid thing. And I think as long as we have guys like Connor right here helping bring more information to the community, I think we're in good straits right now. I think we're having a good time.
One can only hope, I suppose.
I mean, I'm learning from your vids, man. I am. Yeah. Do you have any extra closing statements you'd like to make, man?
Let's see. If listening to me babble about stuff for a very long period of time was in any way compelling for a single one of you, you'll like my main channel. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of just going into the monsters and digging into them and going into all the detailings and talking. If that's interesting to you, you'll like the main stuff. I will say, because I am being given the ability to plug it right now, my live streaming and my second channel is criminally underpushed by YouTube. If you just want to watch me be okay at Monster Hunter and just hang out with my friends and say the stupidest shit, we stream usually about like twice a week. The VODs go up on CR-Volcanic, and a lot of the best clips of that go up on Volcanic Overflow. That also has a bunch of other miscellaneous projects on it. But I think if you're looking for just sheer entertainment value, something to laugh at, go watch that stuff. I wish YouTube would be nicer to those two channels. There is some gold in our live streams. I will be more than happy, because even though I don't know if my normal video essays overlap the best with having guests, I do tend to have guests on the streams, and I think we will be having Mr. the Meat Man over on there live at some point in the near future. So if you like your boy, I'll try and get him on for something every now and again, because I do like having guests over on the live show, because the live shows are very, very fun. So if any of that is in any way appealing to you, go check those 3 channels out. Would be very much appreciated, and thank you for your time and for listening.
Hell yeah, man. Hey, I'm gonna link all 3 channels in the description. You guys check them out. Great channel. I know I keep glazing them, but it really is just that good, guys. You gotta check them out. Hey, if you watched this far, thank you for watching. Stay meaty, my friends. Connor, do you want to tell them to stay meaty?
Stay meaty, ladies and gentlemen.
Hell yeah. All right, guys. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. Shout out to my members. Thank you to my meatballs and my bacon bits. We finally have more than one meatball. Now we also have my head chefs and filet mignon. We got Akir, Funnelloss, Monster Hunter, Seb for short, Mr. MH, and El Mango. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys really do help me out. I know I keep saying that every single time, but I don't know what else to say. You really do help me out. I appreciate you.
I've got dinner ready. Let him cook.